As I mentioned, this is the meeting of the Judicial Branch's Access to Justice Commission. We do have a quorum. There was a motion to approve the minutes. It has been seconded. Any discussion regarding the minutes? All those in favor of approving, please raise your hand and say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we have Attorney Heath and Attorney Schlingheiden have abstained. The minutes are approved. All right, so the next item on the agenda is a demonstration of the new Access to Justice intranet site. So this right now is available to Connecticut Judicial Branch employees that allow them to see what we're doing and advise the people that we serve about what resources are available. I asked Jen Shukla if she can go ahead and do a demonstration of that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justice Bright. So as many of you know, I did officially start working for the branch back in September. And even though I'd been in Access to Justice already for 4 or 5 years at that point, 4 years, I wasn't aware of all the incredible things that this commission and the judicial branch were doing related to access to justice and the many different ways that we are directly providing access to justice to members of the public. And I guess I thought, if I hadn't heard of some of these things, it certainly feels unfair to expect our own staff who's not involved with access to justice or members of the public to know some of the great things we're doing. So with that in mind, I sort of set out to create an access to justice intranet page, which will be one tool we can use to help share some of the great work this commission is doing and our judicial branch is doing with our own staff. My thinking on that is I heard from a lot of staff members, marshals, and others who said they frequently find themselves in a situation where a member of the public comes up to them and says, they see someone in uniform or someone looking like they know what they're doing and starts asking, where can I go to get help? I need this. Where can I go for it? And so I thought having everything in kind of one intranet page might be a good resource for those folks to be able to better help our court users. Down the road, we do plan to do a similar thing. So an internet page, which will be available to the public. Right now, this is just an internal page for judicial branch employees and staff. I've just shared a link. If anyone wants to click on it, you can do that. I do apologize to those of you that are not judicial branch employees. For now, that link will only work for judicial branch employees and staff because it is an intranet page. I'm also going to share my screen so that I can show you what it looks like. Okay. Here we go. Just can someone give me a thumbs up or a nod that you all can see my screen now? Perfect. Terrific. So this is the new Access to Justice intranet page. It is live, but I do want to mention because we have built this through SharePoint within my unit, the DEI unit, we do have full sort of editorial control over it. We can update it. We can make changes at any time. So if you see anything at all today that you say, gosh, this other thing should be included, or I don't like the way this thing is, please, please, please do reach out to me. And we can update this, we can change this. It is a working draft and a working document that will change as we have more things to add to it. So we start out at the top with an introduction to what access to justice is. What this section is meant to do is just kind of explain to people what is access to justice and why is it important? Why should we care? So I just tried to pick a couple of facts there that I think really capture in a very short amount of time, why access to justice is so important. Then the next section of our new intranet page is this access to justice current happenings. You'll see two things there for now that many of you are very familiar with on this commission. The first is our Access to Justice Conference, which I hope you all know is coming up in November. It will be November 4th, 2026. That's now this year. And it will be at the Hartford Legislative Office Building. The times aren't 100% definite yet, but it will be a half-day event during the morning on that Friday. So probably something like 8:30 to 1:30, something in that time frame. The second thing you see there is a blurb about our new Connecticut Access to Justice speaker series. For anyone that has forgotten what that is or hasn't heard of it, that is a brand new speaker series that the Connecticut Bar Foundation, Connecticut Bar Association, and Judicial Branch partnered together to get up and running back in the fall. Justice Bright, who's here today, was one of the very, very first speakers in the series. We did just have our second event in the series last week. And the next event, I believe, is tentatively scheduled for April 8th. If you guys have not had the chance, it is a fantastic series. We do have recordings of the events that we are happy to share with anyone on the commission. And eventually they will live here on the internet as well. They're just not there yet. Then this next section is what I mentioned earlier, that this is my thought for if a member of the public walks up to any, judicial branch employee. That could be a clerk, it could be a marshal, it could be, someone who's brand new and here on their first day and is looking for help. We have just a handful of resources here that you could refer that member of the public to that will provide them help. Again, things that are probably familiar to most of you, but we have our court service centers in a number of courts around Connecticut where people can go to get help with what forms they should fill out, making copies, printing, e-filing, the computer. We have our law libraries for any individuals that do need legal information. They want to do research, they want to find out laws, cases, things like that. The third link you see down there is to our self-help resources. These are documents that the judicial branch has put together, things like how-to guides and step-by-step guides broken down by topic. And they are just a fantastic set of resources for people who do not have a lawyer. Scrolling back up now, looking at the right column. This one's fairly new. I was actually very surprised by this, that here at the judicial branch, we have a call center. When I heard call center, what I thought was somebody calls, they say, hey, can you connect me to Waterbury? And someone goes, okay, presses some buttons, and they've transferred the call. Our call center is light years beyond that. And it truly blew my mind when I had a chance to visit them, that they have built a huge collection of information and resources, never legal advice, but information and resources to share with members of the public that can help them with every step of their case. So, information about court processes, court forms, procedures, which courts accept things by email, which don't, all through this one phone number that people can call. So that is a link to information on our call centers. Then next you see our volunteer attorney programs. The judicial branch has been running those for years. Did I see Roseanne here today? Yep. Roseanne, Nicole, Damon have all been involved in our courts volunteer attorney programs. Through those programs that are once a month at various courthouses around the state, people who don't have a lawyer can come and meet with a lawyer to get some limited legal advice. And then finally, we do have our one external link here, which is to a website we've heard some about, and that is connecticutlawhelp.org, which is a website that was created initially by Connecticut's legal aid organizations. And it has a number of resources that are written in very, very plain language for people that don't have a legal background. So sometimes that can be a really great place to send people for information that's broken down to a more basic and understandable level without any legal knowledge. Then scrolling down a little bit more, we have this section here called Making a Difference. In here, you'll see some data about our access to justice efforts. Obviously, this section will be populated more later on. There are also links here to some of the various things our judicial branch is doing related to access to justice. And my thought on this section is this could come in really handy if down the road we're ever applying for grants, just to have data and numbers available to be able to say, we're doing all this work, but is it making a difference? At a glance, you can see, yeah, it's making a difference. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people in just a year. And, that could also just be a useful tool for this commission to have if people say, well, what's this commission doing? Or what's this Access to Justice Commission all about? So that is on the website. And then finally, we have our If You Want to Learn More section with a bunch of resources on what access to justice is in a lot more detail. So that is our current internet page. As I said, it is brand new. It is fully editable. So please, please, please provide comments, feedback, suggestions, ideas, anything you have. You can send me offline. Just call, text, email, whatever you want. Does anyone have any questions on all that?
Thank you, Jen. Judge Stewart? You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I don't know why that took so long to get my mouse to connect. In any event, so my question, Jen, is what are we doing? I thought it was great, first of all, but what are we doing to let people in the branch know that this exists?
That is an excellent question, Judge Stewart. The answer to that so far is outside of some of the members of this commission that have reviewed earlier drafts or provided comments. To date, nothing. I did want to run it by the commission first, make sure that we get everyone's thoughts and suggestions in. Once we do that, then I would like to maybe send out at least an email branch-wide, just letting all of our staff know that we have this new training. I'm sorry, that we have this new resource. And then down the road, later this year, I'd love to roll out an access to justice training as well for our judicial branch employees and staff that would kind of go hand in hand with this new resource.
One other suggestion I have is that perhaps you, in particular, educate all the librarians, the public service desk people, the front, the clerks people, instead of just sending out one email that people may or may not see, might exert a little extra effort to bring it to all those people that are already on the front lines, their attention.
So on that last point, and Krista, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but we did provide some kind of we've developed internal resources for all librarians and law librarians as well, so that they have all of the same information.
Yes, correct. You are not wrong. You are correct.
Thanks. Attorney Beauvais?
Hi, everyone. It looks amazing. My first question, I guess, is who is the intended audience? Is it like primarily for the public?
Yeah, Tanya, that's a great question. So for this particular resource, it will be housed on our judicial branch intranet. So it is only available to staff and employees.
Yeah.
And our thought being, well, hopefully there's lots of people that just care about access to justice and just want to learn more for the sake of learning more. On a more practical level, we also do hear from our staff a lot that people will get questions from members of the public. And so they can serve as that intermediary when someone is coming to them as a staff person saying, help me, I need to do this. And, instead of maybe taking up the judicial marshal's time, the judicial marshal would have a resource they could point to and say, okay, here's where you can go to get that help, instead of having to interrupt court or distract from their other duties. So right now, the audience would be judicial branch staff and employees who interact with the public. Down the road, we're hoping to have a sister site to this one that will be an internet site available to the full, any court users and members of the public.
So my only thoughts then, and it's really more geared towards like the sister site, I guess, is I noticed that it was under DEI. And so I wondered if it should be like under like an access to justice so that folks would know how to find it. And then the other thought is translations. So like other languages and then simpler language, like, just so that your average public can sort of follow it and make sure that they understand it, particularly if English is not their primary language. But it's amazing. It's like, I think it's such a great tool to have all in one place where people can go and find information.
So great suggestions, Tanya. And I think Jen's right. The idea was if we start with the intranet site, then there's a lot of information already on our internet site that in some ways probably has too much content without explaining what the content is. So the idea here is let's start here and then try to do something similar with our internet site. And then that will involve addressing even more of some of the issues you raise about other languages and about plain English. It's even more important when we do that outside the branch than doing it inside the branch. But great suggestions. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? Okay, well, thank you all. We will keep you posted on how this progresses and how it transitions from internal to external. So the next item on our agenda is a review of the draft frequently asked questions regarding amendments to 2-27A subsection B permitting MCLE credit for pro bono work. I'm going to just touch on this briefly, then turn it over to Judge Stewart because she's also on the MCLE commission. This issue came before the Rules Committee because the idea was the Rules Committee is the committee that adopted the MCLE credit for pro bono work, and did the Rules Committee want to weigh in on the FAQs? And the Rules Committee unanimously agreed that we were fine with whatever the Access to Justice Commission and the MCLE Commission came up with as appropriate FAQs, because we felt that those two groups would be considering all of the perspectives and that it need not come back to the Rules Committee. So there's been a kind of iterative process between the two groups. Attorney Rowe, who I think was here, has been extremely helpful in coordinating all of this. And with that, I'll turn it over first to Judge Stewart and then to Attorney Rowe.
Thank you. So first, I asked that Nicole include the rule, first of all, so that people weren't just looking at the frequently asked questions and so on that the MCLE Commission came up with without some context. So the rule, so we got part of that. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention. So last year, 2-27A was amended, so this rule is already in effect, not only to add subsection 8 to B of 227A, but C, which is not here, that talks about credit computation. And for those of you who don't know that, you get 1 hour of credit for 3 hours of pro bono work, up to a maximum of 6 hours per year. So moving away from the rule, and Attorney Rowe can speak in much more detail on this, but basically she thought on behalf of the MCLE Commission that it would be a good idea to have some information up on the MCLE site to preempt, frankly, a lot of what we thought would be common questions. So she came up with what was originally 2 documents. One was the first part of what you see, which is a list of items that would not be eligible for MCLE credit, and another list that would be. And then separate and apart from that, a number of frequently asked questions. So as Justice Bright mentioned, that was circulated. And on behalf of this commission, it was delegated to the pro bono subcommittee, which I chair, to provide commentary. So I did circulate that to my members, and a number of the members did comment, in particular on 2 subjects. So there was, in other words, there was a prior draft of what you're looking at here, which our group had some issues with terms like indigent, indigency, income verification test, and so on, as opposed to the rule language, which said clients unable to afford counsel. And we were in particular concerned that, first of all, it would burden a number of these legal aid groups and so on that weren't already doing this to provide, or even the court system for that matter, to do tests, if you will, to determine whether somebody met some level of income verification. And we were also concerned that it would exclude a number of people in what we call the ALICE population, asset limited, income constraint, employed people, which is a big chunk of the people who are consumers, if you will, of the judicial branch's services and who are often representing themselves. if they're not able to be represented by pro bono counsel. So we had a number of comments on that, which affected, in particular, frequently asked question number 2 and several others. And then we also were concerned that the original draft would exclude the judicial branch's volunteer attorney program and other clinic type programs where a lawyer might avail themselves for several hours a month or something to provide legal advice, but we're not being retained, to form an attorney-client relationship. So the MCLE Commission, which, as Justice Bright alluded to, at one point I was on the Rules Committee, this committee, and the MCLE Commission. I've now graduated off the Rules Committee, but I touched this rule in many ways. At any event, the MCLE Commission had another meeting at which they accepted all of our comments, and that version is what you're looking at here. So that's it for my commentary. So I hand the floor over to Attorney Rowe.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. My name's Elizabeth Rowe. I work for the Bar Counsel's office. We provide legal advice to the Statewide Grievance Committee, and we also are tasked with providing legal advice to the MCLE Commission, which is the continuing legal education. So this rule was the amendment to this rule was originally requested by the Chief Court Administrator's office, and we did get it approved quite quickly. Whereas I think often the Rules Committee spends a few more months looking at a rule and reaching out to all of the stakeholders. And this was a situation where, because of the quick approval on it, there was not as much of an opportunity to talk to the Connecticut Bar Association or to talk to other people who might be interested in the rule. But that being said, the MCLE Commission is tasked with providing FAQs to the bar to explain to them how any particular MCLE provision can be applied, whether certain courses work or don't work. Connecticut is a unique state in that we trust attorneys to do their own due diligence and to act in good faith. And most states have very rigorous MCLE programs where they're approving every single course prior to someone being able to take it. And they also have very rigorous standards as to what is or is not allowed for MCLE approval. And in Connecticut, basically, when they put this rule into effect, they said, you know what, attorneys are officers of the court, and we need to rely on them to use their best judgment. And so what we did when we looked at the rule to make suggested changes, and we also received input from the Connecticut Bar Association on this, was looked at the concept of, if an attorney is acting in good faith, how can this program work for them? The idea, particularly when it was being passed, was that we wanted to encourage more pro bono work, and that the Connecticut Judicial Branch, the Volunteer Attorney Program, is a nice gateway for lawyers who might not otherwise limited scope for the people, members of the public who come forward. And then we applied that same standard to the language we were trying to work with, which is that the client is unable to afford counsel. And so what we were trying to avoid are sort of well-off situations, like a person who wants to help a nonprofit who's well-funded and doesn't necessarily need assistance. And we really wanted to get to consumers and humans and clients and people who are coming to the court who need direct assistance. And so that's why you have that language, unable to afford counsel. Some work is considered pro bono. The Latin is pro bono publico, which is for the benefit of the public. But they wanted to sort of hit those two topics of, one, it's uncompensated, and two, it's a person that we're really trying to target who needs that assistance. And it helps the judicial branch as well, because we have a lot of self-represented parties that are not very good at presenting their matter, which might have merit to the court. And so that was the goal, was to let's meet the substance of the rule and get there. And so in that situation, what we were able to do is revise the rules to allow that the volunteer attorney program would work, and also to say we will leave it up to the nonprofits, and we'll leave it up to the individual attorneys to make that assessment as to whether or not the client that they're trying to help is unable to afford counsel. And so having done that, the MCLE Commission did meet in December, and they authorized Judge Stewart, myself, and Attorney Yuri to revise the MCLE FAQs and then contact everyone we thought who had already offered input, see if they agreed with the revised rule or the revised FAQs, and then bring it back to the MCLE Commission for a final approval. So hopefully this new draft addresses all of your concerns.
I had just one question, Attorney Rowe, and I see Jen has her hand up. I think there may have been a little, since we circulated this, maybe a little more or a few more edits that Jen had suggested, and I don't know if she had talked to you about those edits, but if you just give us an update on where those stand.
I did just talk to Jen before the meeting started today, so I suggested if she wanted to send it to me in written form, I could take a look at it. I didn't know if they were substantive or they were more clerical in terms of some language we might not have correct, that the Access to Justice Commission would have better language for us. One of the challenges when we write the FAQs is to not just parrot back what the rule is. The idea is we're trying to assist people, and so sometimes we'll convert to plain language, but we might be misusing the language, and people who are experts in that area may be in a better position to suggest a language change.
Yeah, and now as Jen to go into a little more detail if she wants to, but I think, like, for example, you had talked about how the volunteer attorney program, there is a kind of limited scope, short-term attorney-client relationship that exists. It might be 5 minutes, it might be a half hour. And I think that there was a couple word changes in the answers to the FAQs that made that point that there is that limited representation. But Jen, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, and I do apologize that I'm sort of catching Attorney Rowe off guard, that I had hoped to reach out to her before the meeting, more in advance of the meeting today, and got thrown off with the snow. So first, I do want to say thank you to Attorney Rowe, Judge Stewart, Justice Bright, others on this call that have worked so hard on this rule and the proposed FAQ guidance. I think where you have ended up, the draft that I had seen is fantastic. If that's what gets approved, I think you've done a wonderful job capturing the rule, capturing the essence of it, and giving useful advice to people. I did, just looking at this sort of with my Access to Justice hat on, have just a couple what appear to be sort of minor wording changes, but I think they do just clarify the substance to really make sure that we're matching the intent and language of the rule. Attorney Rowe, I'm happy to touch base with you offline about that. I did send you an email as the meeting started with those wording changes. The first one is there's an example that says a salaried government lawyer who represents clients who do not pay for the legal services provided, such as a victim advocate. That would not be pro bono. I think we're all in agreement that if this is your job and it's what you're paid for, and you work for, a legal aid organization or you're a public defender, you're not getting pro bono credit for doing your job. The one little tweak to that I just wanted to clarify is that those same attorneys outside of their job can in fact still do pro bono work and get that credit. So if a legal aid attorney, does their 9-to-5 job, but then they volunteer for example, the CBA's free legal advice clinic one evening after work on their own time in their individual capacity, we don't want to exclude them from being able to get pro bono credit. So just a couple minor wording changes just to clarify that those attorneys aren't barred from getting pro bono credit. They're only barred from getting pro bono credit when they're doing the job they're paid to do. The second edit that I had, and Attorney Rowe, I think you actually just touched on this in what you said, if I understood it correctly, is that question about who determines whether the client is unable to afford counsel. The way the draft had been written, it said that the organization providing the pro bono services would make that determination. I'd love to just add the words "or the attorney providing the services." It's what appears to be a minor change, but what that does is it addresses the situation where it wouldn't be an administrator for the organization making that call. it would be the attorney. And that way they could take into account all of the facts. So if, for example, you have a victim of domestic violence, on paper, that person might have a lot of assets. In reality, maybe their abusive spouse is keeping all the accounts from them and they have no access to the accounts. And so that person cannot afford an attorney, even though on paper their household has assets. And that level of sort of nuance and detail, I think, might be something that the attorney providing the services would have to consider, rather than, just an administrator at an organization that wouldn't have that level of information and detail. My third suggestion is really, really getting into the nitpicky minor stuff here, that there's in question 3, there's one web address that's not a hyperlink, at least on the screen I'm looking at. So we could hyperlink that.
Sure.
And then my final suggestion, and again, I think Attorney Rowe, I think you did mention this in the speech that you just gave, that there's something of an open question whether, when you are meeting with a client in something like a clinic program or a volunteer attorney program, where an attorney is meeting with the client, they are providing legal advice, the client does sign an informed consent, whether that is or isn't a representation. So I had just suggested some words to just sort of clarify that there's no ongoing representation. So whether or not that is a legal lawyer-client relationship, we could talk about if people are interested. It's fascinating, but certainly there's no ongoing, continuing relationship. And those were the only suggestions and comments I had. As I said, I think it is an excellent draft. And if you don't think that those comments are helpful, I defer to the group and to all of you, because what we have already is good too.
So I want to ask if people have any comments, questions. This was very much a collaborative effort. Krista Hess put a lot of effort into making sure that the volunteer attorney programs were covered. The commission and the pro bono committee did a lot of work on it. So hopefully we at least got close in getting something that works for everybody. Attorney Fair?
Hello. With respect to FAQ number 2 on where to find the opportunities, that link to the catalog in the CT Pro Bono portal is broken. As many of you here know, SLS has been working with Paladin to update our Pro Bono portal. I believe if you just take out the catalog part, it will redirect right to the Paladin landing page, and the opportunities will be right up top.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to mention Paladin later, but as long as they came up, Paladin is a organization that's been working with pro bono groups in a number of states to help manage their opportunities and connections with the bar. We've gotten very good reviews from them. They've worked with us. It doesn't cost the legal aid providers anything for Paladin to provide the services. And I think they just rolled it out within the last month. Is that right, Attorney Fair?
Yes, that's correct. We just launched that a couple weeks ago. Happy to answer any questions here or on the side about it. And Erica Basoli, our pro bono director, also worked heavily on this. So we're happy to get everybody on board with it.
So on the FAQs, anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, is there a motion by someone to approve the FAQs as in their current form, subject to small edits suggested by Jen Shukla?
So moved.
That was Jen. Is there a second? Judge Berger? All right. Any further discussions? All those in favor say aye or raise your hands. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody who worked on this. And thank you, Attorney Rowe, for all of your efforts to coordinate between the two commissions.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let me go back to the agenda. 1 second. All right, the next item on the agenda is a presentation on the court services and legal references for librarians program. So this is the program that I mentioned briefly about what we're doing for the librarian. So I'm going to turn this over to Claudia, I think is going to do this.
Actually, Chris Roy is going to be doing
Oh,
the
Chris.
presentation for us. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Claudia. Chris?
Hi, thank you, Justice Bright. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This program, Court Services and Legal Reference for Librarians, is designed specifically to support public librarians and assisting patrons that have legal questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. So my name is Chris Roy. I'm with Law Library Services. As I said, our goal with this program is to give public librarians the tools and strategies to efficiently assist self-represented individuals and members of the public, either with accurate referrals or pointers to legal resources. We provide information about law libraries and the court service centers, how to navigate the judicial branch website, how to locate commonly needed legal resources, how to make effective referrals, and how to avoid giving legal advice. We have provided you with the handouts for the program. The handouts provide contact information for the court service centers and law libraries, among other things, and instructions on how to access resources that we mentioned in the program. So now I will go through the slides. So we begin with information about the court system. So knowing the basics about Connecticut's court structure can help direct patrons to the right place. We explain the relationship of the courts, how the courts are divided into JDs and GAs, and the different divisions of the Superior Court. So with our court service centers and law libraries located in judicial district courthouses, these are key resources for public librarians and self-represented individuals to know about. We also mentioned the probate courts, their jurisdiction and what they do. And then next we discuss the judicial branch website, emphasizing that it is a useful tool for answering common court questions. We point out the available menus to navigate the site, including the left-hand blue menu outlined in yellow here, the drop-down menus outlined in red, and the center icon buttons outlined in green. Using the public drop-down menu, we point out that there are FAQs with instructions for matters like traffic tickets, small claims, and family law. We also point out the links to the law libraries, court service centers, and public information desks. At the end, we speak a bit more about small claims, the monetary limitations, and other details. After that, we discuss the law libraries, the services we provide, and our website. We mentioned the public access we provide to legal research databases like Westlaw and Lexis. We then discuss our research guides and law by subject pages. And these resources are very helpful for getting started with legal research and self-help. As a public librarian, knowing these exist and where to find them means you can point patrons to authoritative resources. We also mention our Find Help page and our Representing Yourself page, which has numerous videos about motion practice, tutorials on filling out official forms, and self-help information cards. So this is all done with a live demo of the website, so there are no slides for this part of the program. And then just as important, we move on to referral strategies. So this section explains how to make effective referrals. For instance, if it's a court-related question, such as court cases, court forms, or court rules, then you refer somebody to the judicial branch website or contact the law library or court service center. If it's related to statutes, case law, regulations, if they have a question about those, you can contact the judicial branch law library or the state library, or refer patron to the online sources if they know about them. Is there a local, state, or federal agency that regulates this area of law? If the librarian discovers that there's an agency, they can provide the contact information for that agency or refer the person to 211 who can connect them up with the agency information. Again, is there a nonprofit agency that provides advocacy in this area of law that they get asked about? CT Law Help is a great place to start. And if the person needs a referral to an existing nonprofit agency that may be helpful, they can call 211 as well. And is there a self-help publication or forum on this topic? Both Statewide Legal Services, ctlawhelp.org, and the Connecticut Judicial Branch website or the probate court website have very helpful publications on many different types of matters. So just being aware that those publications are there. And then, is the person looking for legal advice? If so, refer them to the law library's Find Help page, which links to attorney directories and referral services, or refer the patron to a legal clinic or the Connecticut Bar Association's Ways to Get Legal Help page. So these strategies ensure patrons get referred to the right place for help. Then we address avoiding giving legal advice. So this is important for public librarians. We explain that they want to avoid interpreting laws, applying them to someone, applying law to someone's specific situation, or suggesting what action to take. Instead, we provide tips on how to guide patrons to resources and refer patrons to legal professionals. We've added a slide on generative AI tools like ChatGPT, which have become very popular, but can produce inaccurate or fabricated legal information. We remind the librarians that AI responses can be helpful, but the response must be verified before its use. This helps prevent misinformation and legal mistakes. And then we conclude this section by providing contact information for the law libraries, which again is also in the handouts provided, and contact information for other law libraries such as the Yukon Law Library and the State Library in Hartford. So the handouts also provide information on and links to resources we speak about in the program. So now I'm going to pass things over to Roseanne, and I will let her go through the Court Service Center slides.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Hi, everyone. I'm Roseanne Rush. I work in the civil unit of court operations, and I supervise the Court Service Center programs and the staff statewide. So on this slide, it explains what's a Court Service Center. In a nutshell, it is a place for the public to go to obtain information and assistance within the courthouses. The mission is to increase public access to court services. And we do that with knowledgeable staff, with available equipment. We provide workspace. We have court service centers in all of our JD courthouses throughout the state. We also have public information desks. Many of them are also in those courthouses, but staffed just in the mornings. And we have public information desks located in some of our GAs. So on the next slide, we just reiterate there's access to court forms and publications. We have many frequently used ones already printed and available on a forms wall for people to help themselves, and we can print anything that somebody needs. We can help them find court case information, and we provide one-on-one staff assistance. And there's a picture of one of our very helpful, very knowledgeable staff. Next slide, Chris. Okay. We have language services and notary services available. All of our centers are equipped to be able to assist with telephonic language services. Many of our staff are bilingual. We have staff that speak fluent Spanish, Portuguese, and Polish. And all of them are notaries. We have workspace available with public use computers, word processors, phones, scanners for e-filing, copiers, fax machines, and printers. Again, we have internet access, so people can check out the case online, and they can also e-file right in our centers. We can provide community resource information. We try to stay very updated on that. We display information, and we also have written materials available for people. We can also give them courthouse information on parking directions, and they can make an ADA request that we would pass on. They can do it with our staff. So this is the type of assistance, the cases we can help with. So civil, which includes civil protection orders, family, including restraining orders, small claims, criminal information, housing, and motor vehicle. This slide here explains what the court center staff can and cannot do. And basically, we can give you information, explain the court process. We can give you disclosable information on a case. We can check that you have the correct forms, provide those to somebody, explain what needs to be filled out, check for completeness. We can give information on legal services that are available, including our own volunteer attorney programs. We can help them with schedules. We have workspace, but we can't obviously give opinions on what will happen with their case. We cannot talk to a judge on behalf of anyone. We make that clear. We can't tell them what to say in court or what to write on their forms. We explain it has to be their own words. And we can't fill documents out for them unless it is an ADA accommodation, which we do sometimes get for sight issues, physical limitations, or people who are just unable to read or write. Next slide. So again, we have a legal advice versus legal information slide here. Again, we can explain and answer questions about procedure. Rules, practices, and we can give them information on their court files and forms and instructions on completing those. Next slide. But again, we can't tell them what to say. So they often ask, and we have to explain that it has to be their words. And we can't tell them if they're going to be successful or not, or whether they should bring a case. And we can't communicate ex parte with the judge. We just can't speak to people, judges on their behalf, and we let them know that it is often requested. Next slide. Okay, we have information available on our volunteer attorney programs. And in fact, that is the Court Service Center is the check-in site of when we run these programs. So that would be where the public comes in and obtains their consent form. And here are the areas that we have programs in. So contract collections, family law, foreclosure, and small claims. Next slide. So just briefly about our volunteer attorney programs, it is first come, first served. They have to be self-represented, and we don't ask, necessarily beforehand if there is a case pending. They can come sometimes, especially in foreclosure, beforehand if they've gotten a letter from the lender. A lot of people will show up already with concerns, and they can come to any program regardless of what location they may have a case in. It doesn't have to be in the same jurisdiction. Language services, this is just how somebody would request interpreting services. There is no cost, as it says here, and arrangements should be made prior to the court date. And then the clerk's office will work in conjunction with our interpreter and translator service, and they will coordinate that. We will also attempt to do last minute requests when that comes up, if something was not known in advance. But obviously that makes it more difficult for that office. And we do comply with the ADA. And basically people can make a request for an accommodation initially through the Court Service Center or through any staff, and we will work with the ADA office to get that done. And the last slide is just some contact information again on directories for staff, etc. The Court Service Center, that's a shared inbox email that's there, and the law libraries has one as well. That's it. Any questions on either portion of the slide presentation? Okay. Dawn, is Dawn here? Dawn Lamel?
I'm
Yes,
here.
Dawn?
Oh,
Yep.
hi, Dawn. Did you have anything you wanted to add or ask?
No,
or-
absolutely. I absolutely want to add that, Chris has been doing this for us for well over 7 years now, and is deeply appreciated by the library community, particularly since our librarians, particularly in Hartford and New Haven, Bridgeport, and other towns, we field a lot of public service desk questions on legal issues, and this training is extremely, extremely appreciated and helpful, and we appreciate your partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. And thank you, Claudia, Chris, Roseanne, Ty, Krista, for getting all of this material together. And to Attorney Beauvais' point earlier about making the intranet materials available outside, I mean, you could see a lot of what the librarians are being trained to do, and the Court Service Center people are trained to do, is point to where people can find resources on our website. And to the extent we can make the website even more navigable, so people don't have to go to the librarian or the Court Service Centers to just get that direction, that frees them up to actually provide services where that personal interaction becomes really important. So that's kind of what the hope is, Attorney Beauvais, that we can continue down that line to make things easier to understand and with less of a need for direction from either a librarian or a court staff. And I will also say that one of the things we've talked about that other states are doing, which might help with some of the work of the Court Service Centers, is to develop a navigation program where we could have non-lawyer navigators who would be at the courthouse that could direct people where they have to go, where the Court Service Center is, where the law librarian is, the clerk's office, where they can find stuff online. Some states have used kiosks that do a lot of that. I don't think we're at that point yet, but certainly we have computers available for people to use, and we'll continue to try to make that information providing process easier. Anybody else have anything they want to add on this? Okay, thank you, and great work. So the next item on our agenda is the discussion of the subcommittees and reports from each of them. We'll start with the Pro Bono Subcommittee and Judge Stewart.
All right. So this is what we've done in the last quarter. And first of all, as you may recall, I split up our committee into two parts, two working groups. So one of those working groups is devoted to coming up with, or has been devoted to coming up with some sort of website, sort of a one-stop shopping thing, or at least using or improving what's already out there. And the other part of that working group's responsibility is to come up with publicity, if you will, for what tools are out there. So in the past quarter, that group went through the aforementioned Paladin training, not, full super detailed training like we were going to be using it every day, but a sort of higher level training so that we would understand how it worked. And we had someone from Paladin there, as well as Erica Rosoli, to kind of walk us through how we could best use it. A number of us had a number of what I would call practical questions about how we can get the most bang for our buck in Paladin. Our biggest short-term concerns is getting more groups to post on it. I think as of early January, when we met with them, Paladin, first of all, is I think Justice Wright mentioned this, a national organization. They make their services free to legal aid groups, and a number of major law firms around the country pay for a subscription. It's also moving quickly into the law schools. And basically, they're trying very hard in Connecticut to get, they had 10 organizations, according to my notes, on January 7th in Connecticut that were legal aid or other legal services organizations that had already set up accounts to basically broadcast opportunities. My understanding is from our conversation that they can also provide training materials posted up there. So our hope, our committee's hope, is to make good use of Paladin, to be able to, help people get pro bono opportunity, lawyers who want to do pro bono work, find opportunities. So that's our main thing that we're interested in at the moment. So, and we're going to probably, or I have in my own notes, to talk to at least Massachusetts, which has already launched Paladin, so they're a little ahead of us. But our trainer mentioned to us that Massachusetts had done a particularly good job of thinking up where attorneys will look for opportunities and making cross links and so on. So even if they had never heard of Paladin or their counterpart to ctbono.org, which by the way is nested now in Paladin, I think I said that appropriately. But you could sort of stumble into it in Massachusetts. And so we'd like to talk to them and try to figure out how we could set up something similar here. Also up there, apparently they have pretty good social media connections as well. So that is one thing that our group has done. And then in addition to that, the other side of our group is the listening tour group. So we've met with a number of groups of lawyers over the past year. And most recently in January, our listening tour group met with a number of people who are members of the American Corporate Council Hartford chapter. And we got feedback from them on what has and has not worked. Several of these people were what I would say pretty aggressive performers of pro bono services. They were two of the three principal people discussing things were part of large law departments of national corporations, or actually international corporations in one case. And so a lot of times they would be, even though they're sitting in Connecticut, for example, there was a woman from Pfizer's legal department doing pro bono down in Delaware. There was another gentleman who was with Mass Mutual who actually sits up in Springfield, even though he's in the Hartford ACC chapter, who was doing a number of work with a large asylum organization out of Boston. So they had a lot of feedback for us and had suggestions, frankly, that we hadn't heard from our private practitioners that we had been, who are in law firms, large and small, that we had been speaking with. So our next activity is on Friday. Unfortunately, I was trying to get this meeting set up before this, but my own trial schedule has been interfering with that. But on Friday, our whole group will be meeting to look at the feedback that we've gotten collectively from all the listening tour meetings, and also to look at the CBF report to get a better sense of, the demand for pro bono services, because that was one of the recommendations that came out of CBF, was how to increase pro bono engagement, to come up with some short-term and long-term projects that our committee can actually accomplish, and hopefully, at least with the short-term projects, to have something really in process by the time of our conference in the fall. So that's my report.
Thank you, Judge Stewart. Does anyone have any questions or Thoughts for Judge Stewart? Okay, the next group on the subcommittee is the Legal Representation Access, the Justice Issues Subcommittee. Judge Demiola, I don't think could make it for today's meeting. I don't know if there was someone else from the subcommittee who had anything to report. Roseanne?
Yeah, just briefly, Your Honor, Judge Demiola just asked me to give a brief report out for us. So the Self-Represented Parties Access Issues Subcommittee, we have been hard at work. We have made many recommendations, and one of them that we are working to advance right now is, as Justice Bright mentioned, pilot court navigator program. We are focused in our subcommittee initially on housing, and with the goal, ultimately to have something in place that could be used in other areas. So right now we are moving forward with developing specific plans on the Navigator program, which will be submitted for approval. And that would include many things, including a clearly defined role for the navigators. So that's what we're currently working on.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Roseanne? All right, the Law Library Law School Subcommittee, Judge Spader.
Well, in terms of our subcommittee, we're lucky that the law librarians are part of the charge because, they've been at the forefront of access to justice initiatives for, well, as long as they've been a concept in the late 20th century, as you can see from the presentation today. So a lot of that portion of our subcommittee kind of takes care of itself because they're the leaders in the area. But as a committee, our big project that we discussed in terms of doing self-help videos to help people with restraining orders and civil protective orders, we got that kicked off. We've got students from the schools with the assistance of the deans who got us some students. We've got a committee of 5 students, and we were supposed to have our first big meeting to start the project and start divvying up scripts. That was scheduled for Monday morning. So the blizzard kind of canceled our first big meeting with the students. Jen she sent out one of those little bots to all the students to see how we can reschedule that meeting. We were hoping to maybe reschedule it before today so we could have had an update, but we did not get that scheduled before today. But we do have a good group of students in. And I also just want to point out, I don't know if anyone else in the committee has kind of sensed this, but Jen is amazing. Since she's kind of joined the judicial branch and has kept all of us in our different committees in line and, the assistance that she's been providing. So I do want to thank her for the assistance she gives our subcommittee and this committee in full too. So hopefully we'll have a lot of progress before our next, see, look, there's even a little clapping hand showing up on my screen. I don't know where that came from, but that wasn't for me. That was for you, Jen. But we will be moving forward with that project. It'll be on board for our conference. Hopefully you'll all be finished this semester and we'll have some deliverable for us.
Thank you, Judge Spader. And I think we all agree about Jen, although we don't want to tell her too much how good she is because then it just goes to her head. So
all lies, I assure you. But thank you for the kind words, Judge Spader.
And last, the Legal Aid Subcommittee, Judge Thomas.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So as discussed during our last meeting, we've been focused on eviction diversion initiatives and trying to develop in a pilot manner, likely based here in Rockville, where I'm sitting now, a small shoestring budget eviction diversion program. And when I say shoestring budget, I mean with no budget. So we have had some success there. So Connecticut Legal Services has agreed to place on our regular Friday housing docket day a screener as well as attorneys that will be present here every Friday when we run our regular housing docket. So they will be present the morning of to be able to meet with tenants who are interested, to be screened for either brief legal advice or in cases that meet their eligibility criteria, full representation. So Jen and I just had a meeting with the court staff here and our mediator here to make sure that those processes will be aligned in a way that doesn't disrupt the regular docket, while also ensuring that folks can get the assistance they need at the most critical moment for that assistance, which is when they're here in court discussing how to resolve and potentially mediate or decide whether they're going to trial on their eviction case. Two other prongs of that, Jen and I have also met with the Department of Housing to see if we could find a way of aligning applications for the Eviction Prevention Program Fund 2.0 with our court mediation process. Certainly, if somebody is here in housing court on their mediation day, they are partially eligible for that program, although they need to generally establish additional eligibility criteria. But as part of this effort, if we could try to figure out with the Department of Housing some way of either expediting an application process, perhaps having them place somebody here in Rockville also on Fridays, or trying to create some sort of pre-approval or pre-application, pre-screening process through the folks from Connecticut Legal Services that will be here on Fridays. That would certainly benefit both landlords and tenants who are participating in the eviction process, perhaps helping us to generate more enduring and broadly beneficial agreements. We had a good initial meeting with them a couple of weeks ago. They were discussing, we're supposed to reconvene. We were supposed to reconvene, I think, at the end of last week or beginning of this week, but I think snowstorm has put a delay in that process, and we'll reconvene with them shortly to see how they're doing on their decision-making process. Finally, I had discussed that we've developed a couple of plain language advisements in the form of some sort of notice, trying to address common misconceptions that with the input of many stakeholders, including court operations and the housing chief housing clerk, as well as our mediators and clerks here, common misconceptions that result in, at least in part, the high default rate that you commonly see in evictions, which ultimately are harmful, I think, to both landlords and tenants. And to the extent that we are trying to divert from eviction, we need people to be able to come into court on the day their case is called, to try to see if we can explore some resolutions outside of being evicted when they're mediating. And so we're still continuing. I think there's agreement on what those common misconceptions are, and some plain language advisements that could be included in some format. And I understand there's some potential discussions of incorporating those into a revised eviction summons form. And so we'll pick up those discussions and report back at our next meeting in the hopes that we can try to materialize that in a way. Again, I see it all the time as a sitting housing judge. I'm sure others do as well, that individuals expect that they're automatically going to receive a court date without filing an appearance. They don't necessarily understand the importance of coming into court to file an appearance and answer. And so to the extent that we can cut through some of those misconceptions in an early notice and encourage individuals to come in, file an appearance and answer, and maybe address those common misconceptions that, for example, a return date is not in fact a court date, and that individuals facing eviction won't necessarily receive that opportunity to discuss their case or be heard on the merits unless they come in and file an appearance and answer. So a lot of work or progress has been made on those fronts. We'll continue to work on this and report back. We will reconvene with the full committee, which we've not done in a while, to try to pick up on some of the other projects that the committee is working on. My hope is to now be able to shift some of our focus to the concept of a pro bono academy that will be held either on an annual or biannual basis to try to provide particularly newer attorneys being admitted to the Connecticut Bar with the opportunity for a half day or full day of education, as we're able to work that out in common areas or areas of high legal needs, in common areas where individuals facing civil legal crises often do not find access to representation. So dovetailing a bit on the MCLE rule discussion that we've had here today, if we're providing credit to attorneys for engaging in pro bono, it seems logical also that we try to create an opportunity for ongoing and regular education in critical areas of civil legal need, so that attorneys are equipped to do that work on behalf of individuals. So more to come on that, and I'll reconvene with other subcommittee members to try to get that off the ground and in line for our have something substantive to report at our next meeting, but certainly for our November conference.
Thank you, Judge Thomas. Anyone have any questions for Judge Thomas? All right. I think all of the committees, subcommittees are doing a great job of kind of coalescing around particular projects that hopefully we'll have in place for the Future Access to Justice Conference. That was the next. Oh, I did want to say one other thing about the effort with revising forms and kind of moving plain language. And Judge Thomas mentioned kind of explaining what the return date is. I've asked Legal Services to provide me with some thoughts from the Rules Committee side about whether it's time to abandon the return date and what would be involved in getting rid of the return date and making the process more understandable, whether we go to a file first system or even if we stay with the service first system, have it be more plain English what that involves when someone gets served with something. So we're gonna look at that. Judge Stewart, I see you're kind of shaking your head.
Good luck with that project.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I wouldn't take
Spoken
it on,
from
but-
someone that's not on the Rules Committee anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it's
Very
going to
glad I'm
involve.
not on the Rules Committee for that one.
A
I
lot
just
of it's
did
going
the whole overhaul of the family law rules. That was enough.
Yeah, well, I think the return date would require some quite a few statutory changes, but I don't know that anybody is firmly in love with the return day. But if you're out there, let me know if I'm misguided in this approach. All right. In terms of the Future Access Justice Conference, I don't know. I know Judge Rapillo could not be here today. I don't know if there's anything in particular that to report out about that. It's November 4th. We still plan on going forward with the half-day program. All the subcommittees will have an opportunity to present on something, and then hopefully we'll think of some bigger project, maybe have a special speaker or two. Anybody have any other thoughts or questions about the Future Access to Justice Conference? Okay. Other matters as may come before the commission. I just wanted to report on a couple things. We discussed at our last meeting the summary process discovery rules. We agreed on something to be submitted to the Rules Committee, and the Rules Committee unanimously voted to submit them to the public meeting, as was done with the joint efforts of legal aid and the judicial branch staff. So thank you all for that work. The Connecticut Bar Foundation also has a new website or a redesigned website. So if you want to check that out, I commend it to you. And Angela, I'm sure, can answer any questions you might have about it. The Access to Justice Speaker Series that was mentioned a little bit, Judge Thomas and Angela and Jen have worked on that. The first two sessions have been very well attended, over 100 attendees for each of them. The next one will be in April. We're going to cover a number of topics over the year, from funding, from the goal of access to justice, to other ways to provide resources, whether that be non-lawyers, as a number of states have done, alternative pathways to admission to the bar, as other states have done. We'll put it all out there to discuss and see what gains traction. Judge Thomas or Jen or Angela, anything else you wanted to add about the speaker series? No? Okay. And so that will bring us to the last item future meetings, our next meeting will be on April 22nd. Hopefully we will be able to meet in person and not have to worry about another snowstorm, but the way this winter is going, who knows? And just so for future reference, it'll be April 22nd, June 17th, and then September 24th. So we'll have one more meeting in September before the conference in November. Does anyone else have anything that you would like to bring up before the commission today?
Justice Bright, this is Ed Heath. I do have one item, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So I know we're past the stop time. I'll be very brief. But Justice Bright, as you know, I was contacted by a lawyer in private practice shortly after our last meeting, who participates in the Special Public Defender Program, and she said that she and a few contacts who are public defenders or who participate in the SPD program were concerned that this commission isn't addressing issues that are relevant to the criminal justice system. For the benefit of the other commission members, Justice Bright and I talked, and I wrote back to explain some of the reasons why we haven't focused on the criminal justice system with this commission, and gave that to this lawyer's food for thought. She wrote back and said, well, I've talked to a few more of my colleagues, and there are a number of issues you really do think you should consider. It's not enough to simply say that there is a public defender or there are public defenders available, because there are eligibility issues that need to be addressed or should be addressed. There are interpreter issues that need to be addressed. There are in-person court appearance issues, and they gave me a litany of concerns that they had that they felt would be appropriate for this commission to consider. I'm not opening the door to a discussion on that today, but Justice Pratt, I think it should be an agenda item for our next meeting that we at least have a discussion about that, and I can elaborate on the points that were raised, and we could discuss as a committee of the whole whether our work should be expanded to the criminal side of things.
So unless there's an objection, Ed, I would suggest that we invite them to make a presentation at the April meeting regarding these issues and why they think that we should be focusing on those issues beyond, in addition to the civil justice issues we have been addressing. I'm open to hearing why our portfolio should be expanded and why it should be a priority. So if they would like to come and make a presentation in April, like I said, unless anyone feels otherwise, I'd be inclined to invite them. Hearing no objection to that, I'll leave it up to you to invite them to come to the April meeting.
Sounds good. Will do.
Great. Thanks. Anybody have anything else? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? No? Okay, let's keep going.
I'll make that motion.
Real quick.
Attorney Ogilvy, seconded by Judge Stewart. All those in favor say aye.
I think Judge Spader's jumped in.
Thank you all for your patience today. I know it ran a little bit longer than usual, but I think it was worth it. Good luck with the weather, and we'll see you on April.
I just looked at the calendar. Is September 23rd or 24th versus September meeting?
24th.
Because that's a Thursday.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember why we did that on a Thursday, and I think there was a reason, Nicole, but I can't remember now.
Just making sure. We're good.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.